Hi Year 6 and welcome to Friday's reading lesson. Today we're going to finish cloud busting and find out how the story ends. But before we do, I want you to think about where we left the story yesterday with Sam on his own cloud busting. And I want you to predict what's going to happen with Sam and Davey. What's their relationship going to be like? How is this story going to end? Once you've done that, pause the video, read the last 3 chapters of cloud busting and then unpause and join us for the rest of the lesson. Okay, so now you've read it and you've got to the end. Were your predictions right? So let's have a look at our first question. Why do you think that people forgot about Alex giving Davey the peanut but not about Sam and Davey? So think about their relationship throughout the whole story for this question. And then also look at the chapter which tells us that Alex was being friends with Davey. So Alex was showing the world he could be generous, he could be noble, he could be better than me. Davey started hanging around with Alex and the others, the ones who used to hang around with me a lifetime ago. And everyone forgot about Alex and the peanut, but no one forgot about Davey and me. In this chapter we see that Davey is starting to hang around with Alex. Alex probably feels guilty about what's happened and he wants to show everyone, look, we are friends really, I didn't mean it, it was an accident. Whereas Davey doesn't want to hang around with Alex anymore because he realised what Alex did was wrong. So he's not hanging around with him. So to other people, it might be that Sam doesn't care. What do you think? Pause the video, write your answers, and then come back for the next question. Okay, why do you think then that Davey began to hang around with Alex and was not back being friends with Sam? Because you would have thought that after this happened, you would have thought, no, Alex is not a very nice person, I'm going to stay with Sam. But why do you think that happened? He was one of them now, the same as Alex, Pete, Barry. He talked about football and sport. He played computer games and read the occasional book, but any music he didn't like was a waste of energy. So this is highlighting how Davey's changed. He wants to be one of them now. So why do you think he began to hang around with Alex and not Sam? Pause the video, write your answers, and then come back to discuss. So I think that David started to do this because he wanted what everyone wanted in the beginning. He wanted them to be, they wanted Davey to be just like them. So I think he started to hang around with Alex because it was the easier option. And maybe he wanted to fit in, he wanted to be liked, because at the beginning of the story, it seemed like he didn't have many friends at all. What did you think? Did you back up your point with evidence from the text? If you haven't, try and find some evidence to back up your point and put that in your answer. Davey became me and I became him. What does Sam mean when he says this? This is another question where I want you to back up your point with evidence. And this is a bit of a comparison question because we're looking at the changes within the two characters. So if we see here, the way Davey's changed is he's now the same as Alex, Pete and Barry, which is very much like what Sam was in the beginning of the story. And then if we look here where Davey's describing what he's like now, he's saying things like, I look up at the stars and see holes in the floor of heaven, a light so bright it burns my heart. He's now talking how Davey spoke at the beginning of the story when Sam thought he was a bit silly really, a bit ridiculous. And so they've changed in character. Can you make that into an answer where you've got your point, your evidence and your explanation? You should be really good at this by now, Year 6. I can't wait to see your answers. Okay then, next question. Why do you think Davey doesn't say goodbye? Think about Davey in the story and what's happened to him. And why do you think he wouldn't say goodbye to anybody, not even Sam? Pause the video and then unpause when you're ready to discuss the answers. So I think Davey doesn't say goodbye because I think Davey feels quite alone now. He might be hanging around with Alex and Sam, but it says he fitted in like a loose shirt. So that says that he's trying to fit in, but he's not really doing a great job about it. So I think he thinks he hasn't got any friends, so what's the point in saying goodbye? And maybe he was waiting for Sam to go and try and find him and say goodbye to him. What do you think? He just left, but he'd already gone. What does the author mean by this? And you, again, use evidence from the text to back up your answer. Here are a few extracts that might help you out with this question. So, he was one of them now. That saying is different. It was never the same here, so it's not gone back to how it was. And here he's saying like a loose-fitting shirt, not one of them. So using these extracts and any more that you can find, other evidence in the text, write your answer. So point, evidence and explanation. When you've done that, unpause for the next question. So your solo task today is to write a review for Cloudbusting, but you've got to do it in the form of a poem. So I've got a couple of poem structures here from the text, because remember, every chapter is written in verse. So this poem here is called a limerick. So as you can see, the first, the second and the fifth line all rhyme, and then the third and the fourth lines rhyme. You've got this type of poem here, and the structure of this, every sentence is started with the same lines. Isn't life, isn't life. Some of the last words on the line have been rhymed, so you could have a go at a poem like that. There's also the haiku that you wrote in another lesson, but that would be really tricky to review a whole book in just 3 lines. What sort of poem are you going to choose to write? I can't wait to read these, and I hope you all like the book. Have a lovely half term, and we'll see you when you get back for our new class novel. See you later. Bye.